Am I a hairdresser though?
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You said it so perfect. Am I a hairdresser? Are you?
Am I a hairdresser though? Shit, I am. I guess I am. My name is David Pierre Papalardo, and I am a hairdresser.
On one of his many trips to Los Angeles, David sat down with me to tell me a story of growth, expansion, and creativity. David is a longtime friend, an amazing multi-talented hairdresser. But most of all, he's a creative. This is his story. Now I'm gonna put this shit in the video. Right?
Alright, good. No, just
when your clients are also filmmakers.
My name is Ramon. I'm a hairdresser, and this is Hair Stories. Please like and subscribe.
It's not about what kind of technique you're gonna use. You're going to maybe open up their, vision on who they could be. My name is David Pierre Papalardo, and I am a hairdresser. I've been a hairdresser for a while. I recently opened a salon in Aspen with a friend of mine, so I'm co-owner of the salon in Aspen. After spending 8 years here in Los Angeles, exploring different, corner of the industry, like working for brands, also having my own salon, working independently as well. Prior to that, I was in New York City for a pretty big brand in the industry as well. But I am originally from France, and this is where I learned my craft. But there's a few, but there's always this moment if you have a celebrity in your chair, help but think you watch me like, oh my god, I'm a musician or a singer or something like that. There's always those moments where you're like, oh my god, if only I knew 17 years, 20 years ago, sitting in at the movie theater with my dad, watching this person, and now I'm actually interacting with that person and helping her or him. I think also just moving to the US, it was a big project for me. I was always thinking, so I've learned the craft with my parents. So my dad really and my uncle really took me under their wing and helped me out to get into this industry, which wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do originally. I was really into, I grew up drawing a lot as a kid. I was always really into drawing, trying to, creating stuff with just a pen and a paper. I was always trying to draw people, draw things, so I thought that, graphic designer would have been, what I wanted to do. Back then, I really wanted to work with companies and create logos, and I was always a visual person. I like taking pictures. I like creating stuff, doing collage or whatever it was. It was always this sort of. But I started school and actually hated it because it was that time where they were transferring everything to computers.
Yeah.
Mid-90s. And those computers were terrible.
Right.
They were so bad. It was slow.
It's because two things. For me, what's happened kind of in these interview processes is that what I learned from all of these people who, so essentially this project is me just interviewing, for lack of a better word, people who I look up to, my idols or whatever. You see what I'm saying? And so for me, one of the things that I've continually found with them is that each one of them, if they didn't do hair, they were gonna do something else creative, and also something tactile, something they could do with their hands. Yeah. And that it almost, so I say that to say maybe the reason why you didn't why you were like, fuck that, is because it became a computerized thing.
It's true.
And it lost its feeling.
Yeah.
And
Lost the overall creativity. Like it's like you although you can be extremely creative on computers nowadays. I don't know about back then. But yeah. But it's funny because they knew, like those schools, they knew it was the future, yet those computers were so terrible. You know?
Well, that's how they market computers now, right? As like, it's more intuitive. You got the Apple Pencil and the fucking iPad, and it's like, oh, it feels like paper.
It makes more sense.
Exactly.
Now it makes more sense.
Exactly.
So I dropped out basically a couple of months in, and I was like, and so it was too late for me to start something else right away. So my dad was like, well, you're gonna have to. He had a salon, he had a few salons actually back then, and he was like, well, you're not gonna spend the rest of the year doing nothing. You're gonna come and work at the salon. And I sort of experienced it prior to that, just by growing up around hairstylists and this, that, and I was never that attractive. But, a couple of months in doing hair, I was like, hey, I actually can do that. It's pretty easy to me, and
it came natural to you.
It came natural. It was, I kind of already knew what to do or how to do it because I was watching those guys, and so then I met this guy that was, he was a hairstylist, but his mindset was a lot more open than the other ones from a small city. That guy was really into fashion. I remember he started like modeling and ended up doing a couple of runways for Jean-Paul Gaultier back then in Paris. So coming from the south of France, it was a big thing for this guy to do that. And then I was like, and I could see that his mind was open enough where he was like, wow, doing that job, you could also work fashion weeks and you could also travel to a different country. And whatever you learn here is usable in England, the US, Spain, Italy, you name it. There was really a lot of opportunities to, if you were learning a different language, to simply go work somewhere else. And I started like opening my mind about doing hair, and I didn't see it only as a being behind the chair in the south of France in a small town, but now, okay, if I wanted to go to Paris and do fashion weeks and work with designers, like that's a possibility. And so, slowly I kind of got like more comfortable with the idea of becoming a hairdresser.
Isn't it so interesting? I think about this all the time, especially when I think about like my story or I'm hearing my friends' stories and they're telling me, it almost feels like, yeah, sure, your dad was your introduction into, or your family was your introduction into hairdressing, but this other person who you met almost completely by accident, let's say.
Yeah.
This person showed you, opened up this whole new, like, by having this conversation with this person pushed the door open and you were able to see the world in a way that you never did before.
Yeah.
And started the wheels in motion to get you to where you are today, right?
Yeah.
Like traveling the country or, opening up another location and all these other things, right?
Yeah. No, and I really saw the possibilities of this industry, Where it's true, if I was just like, looking at my dad's career, for example, he stayed in the south of France. He opened multiple locations. He had a ton of hairstylists with him, and it eventually turned into a nightmare, to be honest. I mean, it's like having a shit ton of employees where you're doing, managing all day, like driving yourself crazy with all these personalities because that's what it is at the end of the day. But that's not what I saw originally. Like I really saw an opportunity to do different things with it and to almost join other passion that I had, like photography. Like I loved when I moved to LA and got from the fashion industry, because New York is all about fashion, all about shows and all this. And when you move here, it's hard because you don't have that anymore when you move to Los Angeles. But you've got the movie, entertainment, industry, and essentially also like a lot of brands are based here, or at least have their like creative headquarters based in Los Angeles. And that was fantastic for me to like learn how to work with a camera, like how to do hair for a camera, how to do hair that is, putting the focus on clothes, or how do you do hair so the focus is on sunglasses, how like all these things that
It's
are like
crazy.
It's crazy because it's such a different way to do hair behind a chair, or please someone, or work with actresses, or there's so many faces of this industry. And I think that's why you can have an entire life career within this industry without getting too bored. you kind of have to figure some other shit out, because otherwise you just get, you see those stylists that spend 30 years behind the chair only doing hair behind the chair. I mean, you want to shoot yourself. It's just like, no offense, but it's just like, it's hard, like it's hard shit. And you know what? I often hear like all the people being like, oh, that stylist has been behind the chair for 30 years, like that's all he's been doing. Like they're almost not relevant anymore to their own clients.
Right.
Even their own clients are like, you know what, this guy has done nothing with his career. He's just been, doing the same shit over and over. And if you don't have stories to tell, or if you don't have experiences outside of this four walls, like your client, you're gonna lose your credit. I feel like you're gonna.
You lose yourself, because then you just become a machine, right?
Yeah.
You just do the same shit over and over and over and over and over again. And I feel like, that actually leads into my next question. What inspires you? Because everyone knows, or every hairdresser who I've interviewed, including yourself, knows that in order to continue, you have to evolve.
Yep.
And so you have to constantly be changing what inspires you, because if you're just the same that you were from beauty school on to who you are now, or like 15, 20 years, 30 years, and you haven't left and you're just doing this, it's not a fulfilled life.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not.
Yeah. So what inspires you?
At the moment,
I love that. I love that fucking answer.
At the moment, what inspires me, and because I sort of like transitioned back to being mostly at the salon, working with clients in a super high-end 5-star hotel, my focus became more on the person in my chair. Like I switched back to the whole psychological, spending time with the person, really helping a person looking the best she can or he can. That's what I'm inspired by at the moment, is really having people, and we're dealing with a smaller town, a place that's a bit more remote, where even if you have very highly hair educated clients, how I like to, which means clients that have been exposed to hairstylists in Los Angeles, New York, in big cities where people know what they're doing basically, they're sort of remote over there. And they live in this bubble in the middle of the mountains, and it might be fancy and luxury and this,
He's talking about Aspen.
You don't necessarily have access to hairstylists or makeup artists that are used to working with what we work with here. And so for me, it's fantastic to like take these people and sort of put them back on, help them get back on track as far as hair goes. And that's what we've been doing. It's like really like, okay, well, you like to do this, you like to do that. Like, it's really not about, I spend time really doing consultation, really trying to understand what do you do with your hair? Like, what would you like to do? What is doable? What would you like to do? What's your hair goal? What's your, like I'm really trying to get back into my consultation where, like when you're here, for example, and there's a big trend, let's say some big trend comes like like curtain bangs or da 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 da. Like literally, you know, every other client's gonna ask you that. They show up, they have a picture, they are young, they are this, that. It's almost easy because you already know that girl, the way she dresses, she stepped into the salon. You know almost where she belongs, and you pretty much know what she's gonna ask for. Where there, it's like a lot of people are just like, I don't know anymore. Like I've tried hairstylist, it doesn't work.
Right.
I have this one stylist in New York, I have this one stylist in LA. Like it's very hard for me to see them. We're so happy to see you. We hear that all day because you can really sense the excitement of having, you know, some help.
Somebody at the caliber in which they're used to, right? I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like what you're saying is in these big cities, it really kind of, because in New York you have the fashion industry and because in LA you have the entertainment industry, you're constantly interacting with hairdressers, let's say at the top of the game, right? And so to take that then to, it's funny that you said small town Aspen. In my brain, I feel like it's this like this hub of where people who love all of the luxurious shit of Los Angeles and love all the fashion of New York go to get the fuck out of everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But they still have really good taste. And so it's perfect for somebody like you who has been in both those places plus more to then cater to these people. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting that you said was like, knowing that client is going to want to come in and get the curtain bang, let's say, for example. How do you then have that conversation with them to be like, if this isn't for you? Or it is, or you know what I mean? Because a lot of people will come in and they'll want short bob with like straight across fringe, and they want that, like, and then they, especially once they find out, oh, David's from France. I want that French cool girl haircut. And do you feel like that you get stigmatized a lot with that?
I do.
Huh?
Yeah, I do. But it's better than before. I feel like it evolved a lot. We did like 10 plus years ago. I remember it was just like almost people would see you as someone that can only do that. You know, like he's from France. He'll do a bob, he'll do a pixie, and that's it. Like almost he doesn't know how to do long layers, and you're like, you know, or a beachy wave or something like that, you know. But I think it changed a lot, and I think also having, you know, worked in France, worked in New York, worked in LA, like all these places have a particular style, and so I'm so happy I did that because I really feel like I almost learned from directly at the root from that particular clientele, and I'm able to now please someone. You know, I'm not afraid of anyone coming from anywhere into my chair.
You're versatile.
I'm trying to be as versatile as I can. Like if I have Anna Wintour sort of executive sitting in my chair from New York City, I know I'll please her with a perfect classic blowout. Like a lot of stylists would run away from it.
Right. Especially here in Los Angeles.
For sure.
Dude.
I'll take the challenge.
Yeah.
I've done it. It might not be something I enjoy doing, but I know how to do it and I will do it. Right. And the same thing with the pixie cut, same thing with the fade on a guy.
Yeah.
You know, I take the challenge. I love taking the challenge, and I think it brings it back to what you were just saying on how also not to get bored. And like if you are just like, there was this trend of like doing this one thing non-stop, but I also feel like you get bored after a while. You know, like you need to reinvent and try to learn other things. And I know often we say the one thing, this is what you need to focus on. It's true. It's a marketing. It's a real marketing strategy thing that does work. But I feel like as a person, someone that creates, you might get bored by doing this only one thing.
Totally. I mean, and that, funny enough, leads me into my next question. What do you do to constantly what do you do outside the salon that, because here's the thing is, I mean, we both have had the fucking 13, 14, 20 clients a day, from this to that. You're actually, funny enough, you're actually doing that while you're here in Los Angeles. Yeah. But one of the first things you said to me, or one of the first things I heard, was that you went out to the desert. And I think I saw on your Instagram that you went mountain climbing with your homies. Like, that sort of shit, for me, fuels me, right? Like, I love to be in the garden. I love to cook, clearly, obviously, you know, it's like, but it's one of those things where that's what fuels me. It fuels me to be with my family. It fuels me to do little things like this, like be on the other side, like interview my friends and be like, yo, how do you think about the world? Because that for me is so interesting. So what are some things that you do?
As you know, it's like everything. I feel like, well, I've passions outside, you know, like rock climbing, surfing, all these things. No matter what I do, one thing that I like to do is put myself in some sort of uncomfortable situation always. Because without this, I don't grow, I plateau. And if I don't like sometimes pull the trigger and say, okay, I got it, I'll do it. You know, I'm not gonna do it. I'm that kind of guy that's gonna sit around making a decision for hours or question myself too many times, you know? Yeah, and so I'm like, I gotta, like rock climbing is something that does put fear into me.
Absolutely. In
some, you know, like when you're like 40, 50 feet above the ground, holding onto a rope with your buddy, belaying down there, and you're like clipping yourself into some like anchors or bolts that have been there for who knows how long on this sword, you know, there's always this question of like, even though it's not a big risk, you can always get caught by something else. Like there's always this fear factor that helps you grow. That if you don't have that fear factor, when you're gonna come back down on the ground and you're not gonna feel like you've accomplished something. I like to feel like that was tough. That was emotional. I got a big emotion out of it. Like I really feel good now. And it's the same thing with surfing. You'll get in the water, there's those big waves, like they're scary. I love the ocean. I'm scared of the ocean. It's, you know, not to forget, like a lot of people get killed in those waves. And so, like, you get in there and you accomplish something. It's always calculated, and actually at the end, the risk is not that big. You know, I shouldn't be talking like this, but I have kids. But, you know,
right, exactly.
It's like the risk is always super calculated, but yet it's still, the fear factor is there. And it's the same thing. It was the same thing in my career. When I wasn't sure about what I was doing, when I was still like learning how to cut, doing certain haircuts, learning how to do certain hairstyle. For years I didn't do updos. I don't know, I was like scared of updos. But I really feel like you need to be involved in what you do and go for it. And even if it's scary, like that fear factor will make you grow. That's what I like to do outside. It's like,
challenge yourself to be the best
challenge
person.
Yourself, yeah.
That's exactly.
You know, I'm gonna steal that sentence from the McConaughey book that says, "Don't be so impressed. Get involved." And it's such a good quote, because it's so easy to just be like, "Oh yeah, this thing." Like you've got this thing that you're not sure about, and you're just gonna avoid it, and because it's impressive. And no, go for it. Like it's scary, it's scaring you. Do it, you'll feel so much better after. So no matter what I do, in my job, not so much. I mean, it's hard to find really challenging things these days, but a challenging client, I'll take it. You know, like I'll take someone that's been disappointed. I'll take someone that's struggling with their hair. Like I think if I get a chance to make her happy, if I can actually accomplish that, like, oh, it's such a good feeling. You know, you've really helped someone that's that has been struggling, like, and I guess to translate it into our, in our industry, that would be that.
That's fucking amazing. The next question I was gonna ask you, this is the last question, is give me a free piece of advice. It could be anything.
I feel bad stealing it, but it's so true. It's really, don't be impressed, get involved. Don't be impressed in what you see, dig, do it. Like, try to find a way to do it, you're gonna feel so much better. You can't be scared of things, like, you gotta go for it. You gotta, like, you have to. I think fear is our enemy, and it's everything. It's everywhere, it's every day, it's an emotion, it's a feeling we have constantly. And if you don't get involved and try at least to, like, fight that thing, like, you're always gonna be doing the things that you are not necessarily wanting to do, and you're always gonna have this idea of, like, oh, I could have, should have.
Right.
And maybe one day.
Right. And that's the biggest. That's like, it's so funny because it sounds so cliche, right? And I'm speaking this from fucking experience. This more like, I made the plan with you to shoot this video, right?
Yeah.
And then as it got closer and I got closer, I could feel my chest tighten. Like, holy shit, I'm actually gonna do this. This is actually happening. I actually set this up to do it. You know what I mean? And this is something that's been in the works for a long time, in my opinion, and a lot of things have changed in my life, and I was just like, and it's funny because the way that I knew that I was on the right path is because everybody I told about this project, with the exception to you, because you've always believed in me, you've always, like, given me that energy back, like, fuck yeah, do it, like, that's amazing, had told me, with exception to the few people who said, amazing, do it, people were like, I don't understand it, I don't think it's gonna work. You know that there's already something like that. And hearing you say it, yeah. And it's funny because hearing you say it, right? Like, hearing you talk about, like, don't be impressed, fucking do it. You can just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, that, I hope that resonates with every single person, because it's not just in the hairdressing industry. If you notice, like, all of the questions I asked you, none of them are about hairdressing, right? Because I don't give a fuck about not to say I don't give a fuck about that, that's a little intense, but I want the person behind the chair, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't care necessarily about, I'm not gonna ask you about how you created your technique or how you think about hair. It's not about that. It's about learning about somebody who's taken their craft, and it could be anything, right? Maybe one day I'll be fucking interviewing other people, hat makers, I don't fucking know, like surfboard makers or whatever it may be. What inspires that person to be that person? You know what I mean? And, like, for me, that's really, I just want to inspire as many people as possible. You know?
I think it's you've got a very broad subject, broad opportunity to develop this thing, because it's, like Amy was saying earlier, like, this whole thing about, like, the psychological effect of getting your haircut, which is not the psychological of getting your haircut, it's the psychological effect of walking into a place where you could be a mother of 3 children and taking care of them all day, and have a husband that comes from home and may not even be looking at you anymore, or you walk into this door and you're in the hands of someone that's here to help you. Whether it's with, it's not about what kind of technique you're gonna use to change that person's hair, but the attention that you're gonna give to that person, that you're going to maybe open up their, vision on who they could be, or what she could do with her hair, or things that she's never heard before, or a simple tip
Mhm.
to change their hairdo that day, or a tip on something else. Like,
Exactly.
it's more.
Yeah, no, fully. I feel like you hit the fucking nail on the head by saying it's a piece of information, right? Because that's what it is. It's information.
It's information.
And I think that both of us grew up, or like kind of built our bonds in environments where people didn't want to share. If they knew something, they did not want to share with them. And then those people, I feel like thankfully are now on their way out of the universe, But I feel like our generation is very much like, if I know something, I'm gonna tell you. If I figured out a shorter way to get to this location, I'm gonna tell you everything. I'm gonna connect you with this person, all this other stuff.